When is what we're working on good enough to put out? This week on Carlie's Couch, we explore the gap between taste and ambition and talent and explore the idea of releasing our work into the atmosphere.
Welcome to Carlie's Couch. My name is Lextopia. This is Carlie Carpio to my left. We hope you're having a great, beautiful week thus far. Carlie came up with this episode based off of a quote that she found. So I think that it's kind of interesting just to, break down something that somebody said and that can apply to our lives and have a discussion around it. But first, we have a question of the week that shows a lot of delusion.
And so the question was, this week's question from the couch, which celebrity do you think you look like / get told that you look like? First, we have a funny GIF, and it's Josh. I think his name is Josh Vanderbeek. I just got a GIF. But the guy, Dawson from Dawson's Creek.
Why they don't never seen you no words.
Bro, but I could see that in the face. Like, I could definitely see it in the face. And it's funny because the GIF they sent, he was, like, crying, and, like, it looked more like him. So, yeah, that's fair.
Who is Mark Henry?
Sexual Chocolate. Big chocolate wrestler back in the day. WWF from back in the day. But I could also see that.
I don't know who that is, so I don't know.
I'm gonna be looking that up. Go ahead and read the next one while I look this one up.
The next one said freshman year it was Chris Tucker. By the time we graduated, it was Kevin Hart and Kevin Durant. I can see how Kevin Hart and Kevin Durant, maybe they got the same thing, but I feel like also you were probably not in an environment of people that look like you. So sorry about that.
Yeah. I'm just going to go to the next one. So, as a kid, Tatiana Ali, back in her Fresh Prince days.
I feel like a lot of girls look like Tatiana. And another one said Chris Brown.
And I'm going to get into this week's quote. No. I don't know. But I mean, I don't know. Like, and they also didn't specify, like, if that was someone telling them they look like that or
what
if
did
they
you think
it.
No.
That's why I said I'm just going to
keep
keep pushing. Yeah.
We hope you listening because Carlie said, wah. She said, yeah.
No.
Whoops. Carlie, who is somebody that you've been told you look like or you think you might look like?
I only thought of, like, what you said, actually.
What have I said?
What's her name? Oh, my gosh.
Paula
Patton.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say.
Yeah.
I think you like Paula Patton sometimes. And for me, I would say like a Cree Summer is somebody that people have likened me to or walked up to me about it or something like that. I mean, there's a lot of other people too, but that's one that I was like, I think that could be kind of accurate.
Look, we talking about that Halloween picture. We could throw Rihanna in the thing.
No, I don't look like Rihanna. But I've heard about Zoe Saldana. Who else? There's just a bunch of whoever's.
Yeah, I was about to say my other one I've gotten is Rosario Dawson and Tia Carrere. Which back in the day, Tia was a hot mama, so I'm not mad at it. But I was like, just because I got a big forehead. Oh, dang, I got to show you after this.
Yeah,
okay.
I don't know who these people are. But let's get into today's episode. This one is definitely for the creatives, but I feel like a lot of us have a creative streak in us, especially if you're somebody who likes to learn or absorb or looks for inspo in different places. So this episode is for everybody, but it's kind of about how do you bridge that gap between, how good you like for things to look and being okay with where your stuff is. So get into it because I know this is going to apply.
All right. So the quote is, "Nobody tells this to people who are beginners. I wish someone told me. All of us who do creative work, we get into it because we have good taste. But there is this gap. For the first couple of years you make stuff, it's just not that good. It's trying to be good. It has potential, but it's not. But your taste, the thing that got you into the game, is still killer. And your taste is why your work disappoints you. A lot of people never get past this phase. They quit. Most people I know who do interesting creative work went through years of this. We know our work doesn't have this special thing that we want it to have. We all go through this. And if you are just starting out or you are still in this phase, you got to know that it's normal, and the most important thing you can do is to do a lot of work. Put yourself on a deadline so that every week you will finish one story. It is only by going through a volume of work that you will close that gap, and your work will be as good as your ambitions. And I took longer to figure out how to do this than anyone I've ever met. It's going to take a while. It's normal to take a while. You've just got to fight your way through. Ira Glass.
So where did you see this long quote?
So actually I heard the shorter quote. It is going to the shorter part is it's only going through a lot of volume that you will close that gap. And a woman made a TikTok and she was like, your taste will never match up with your work, with your talent. And she was like, and that's okay. Don't let that be the thing that stops you. And she was like, I think the quote was from Ira Glass. So then I went and researched the quote, read the quote, and it just was pondering this idea of like our taste or our aspirational visions versus like our talent. And thinking about how it applies to my life. And we talk about procrastinating and things holding us back. And I think this is a big one sometimes, especially for really creative people, whenever what you're trying to create doesn't look like what you think it should.
Mm-hmm. And what I liked about that quote is that it acknowledges that, you know, you're in your space for a reason and that you do have that creativity in you. So it's not that it's not there. But I also like that she it's a woman, right?
The quote, I think it was a guy.
Oh, Ira. Yeah, because Ira is a guy's name. Or that the person who made the quote also spoke to the fact that that's okay, spoke to the fact that there's a way to bridge the gap, and then gave their own experience of it working for them. And so I think it is very relevant to how we look at the journey of becoming better at whatever the craft is or how that looks. You know, an aesthetic, your skills, whatever. I'm pretty sure this applies in so many different spaces. So, Carlie, to you, what does taste mean? Like having taste in a creative type of context?
Having taste means in my head, like your vision or your aspiration for how something should look or how you really want something to look. Like if you want to paint, it's like your vision of what the finished pieces are going to look like and how they might, you know, make people emote in this, like, or if you're sewing clothes, like how they'll lay on somebody and when they walk, how they, you know, bounce and move with the wind and things. And so it's like your like vision for whatever your media or medium is for creating.
Mm-hmm. And then because it's often aspirational and maybe you're thinking about like the statues of David and, you know, all this different art or different things that you've seen elsewhere or by masters or whatever, it's something that you are aspiring to do. And it also is something that always evolves as you evolve because I would say that your taste can evolve over time based on exposure, based on what you do. I see lots of social media posts from artists who will show like how they used to draw and then how they draw now. And so, of course, your taste also is probably going to get even better as you go. But because of those two things, that's what makes this such an, I don't want to say unrealistic, but that's what makes this such a dangerous concept to be comparing your work to the actual taste that you have.
I think so too. And especially when you're looking at these masters and people who have, you know, it's their life work or, you know, maybe they're just a savant and they're just actually really good, but you've been working forever. Like, I think it discounts like your level of genius and wherever you are and like not respecting their journey or the things that people have been through. And so we kind of get stuck in these things. But I think the bigger issue is that like, it makes you not want to put it out. It's like, you know, it's never good enough. Like it never feels quite good enough.
Yeah. And when things don't feel good enough, you end up holding on to it and that slows you down from even practicing your craft, getting that out there, etc. So we're definitely going to talk about what the pros are of bridging that gap between the tastes. So that bridges into the next point that we have about the value of actually sharing your work. And again, this is not just talking to artists, but if you write for work, if you do strategy and it's like your decks get better over time, the way you handle your meetings over time, like literally all of these things, I think this is why there's value in always going for it and sharing and doing what you can do at the time. So it helps you to get actual feedback and to learn. Imagine if you never put anything out, even if you're still doing the work yourself or practicing or trying to get your skills better, you've never actually even heard from your audience. You've never heard from other peers. You've never heard from any other experts in the field. You've never heard any feedback or seen how people digest your work. And so it's almost like you're kind of robbing yourself of a chance to get some valuable insight.
Absolutely. And you are chasing this ideal, but you never know how your work might change somebody's life, how it might inspire them. And I think one of the biggest pieces of not like waiting to put things out until they get perfect, because one, they never will, so you'll never actually put something out, is you don't really enjoy the process. Like that becomes the tedious thing, and the emphasis is just like on the outcome versus like all the things that you learn during the process. That's important to share with people. I think about it like with my butters and stuff. Like I had 17, 18 formulas before I put them out, and if I still didn't think it was perfect, but it was my favorite one. I really enjoyed it. But had I never done that, I couldn't get the feedback. I couldn't have iterated. You never allow yourself to actually have a starting point, and it's all a fever dream.
And getting that feedback does allow you to continue to explore, try new things, and always kind of still get even more close to like being yourself or being in the space you need to be. So many singers, like when you listen to their work over time, like it completely changes. And also with artists that we see on television and movies, like you can see how people have been able to grow and evolve. And it's through actually like putting yourself out there and then being able to shed things to get to a space that feels right for you.
Yeah, and just being able to combat that perfectionism and recognizing that like you're really just procrastinating, you're not, accepting yourself as you are, you're not giving yourself a chance or giving your art a chance, or and I'm saying art, like but it could be your business, it could be if you want to start baking for friends, like whatever your thing is, you're not really ever giving yourself that chance.
And then another value of sharing your work in progress is that it allows you to focus on the process and it de-emphasizes the outcomes. And so let's say you're doing like some webinars and you putting it together some type of content. Going ahead and putting it out actually is allowing you to still get that information out there to move forward in your work, to like at least still have something that people can see or see what you do, et cetera, as opposed to never putting anything out there and not giving yourself a chance to even see what that outcome can be, because that might be a learning experiences that shows you, oh wow, this is a big place to make money, or this is another avenue to gain clients, or whatever it is. But if you're just focused on the outcome of like wanting everybody maybe to be like 100% or, do whatever, it's always going to feel like it's not good enough for that outcome. And so that process allows you to still move forward by making some steps.
Yeah, and that's beautiful. Like anytime you're trying or like allowing yourself to just move forward is beautiful. And so celebrating those moments. Okay, so I have an idea. I want to do this. I've been working on a thing. When is it good enough to put out? If we're saying it doesn't have to be perfect, when is it good enough?
So one measure that your product or whatever this is good enough to put out is if it communicates the intended message. What do you want people to gain from this? You want them to see you as a marketing guru. You want them to recognize you as a good singer. You want them to see how your work reflects XYZ themes, like whatever that may be. If your work does convey that, then hey, it's good enough to put out.
Another thing to consider is, will sharing it aid in future improvement? Like thinking about, will it help you get better? Will feedback help you get better? Will you be able to help people with what you're putting out? If you have, like, that's like someone who might have a cure for cancer, but real scared to actually try it. And so you might not ever be able to help people. And so thinking about whatever that is, like, will it aid in future improvement?
Mm-hmm. And also, if it can stand alone, even if it's not perfect or your ideal product, picture, song, whatever this may be, then it's good enough that you can share it because somebody can still get something from it. You can still gain something from it. So as long as it communicates the message and still is a forward step, it might be a small step. And actually, a lot of times nowadays, it's so interesting that the things that do go viral, the things that do catch a lot of attention are often the things that were not overly produced and put together all extra. It was because it was genuine and real. And, somebody just stepped out there and did a thing. And most of the time wasn't really trying to like even have this big moment. But that's what makes people relate to you more oftentimes. So that's one of the reasons why you really should just take off that cloak of like everything having to be perfect and just go for it.
Yeah, in business, they have a minimum viable product, your MVP, and you launch that shit literally to see if it works, if anybody is interested, if the product can get any traction. And then so you might see like, oh, actually there's not really a market for this. This didn't work. I didn't enjoy it. It's not what I want. Good. But if you never release it, then you never would have known that. So you're really stuck in this area of like waiting for perfection when you're really just holding yourself back from everything else. But that also leads me to the next question. So if we're talking about, in the quote, Ira said that the more you practice, the more you put things out, the closer you get to closing that gap. And then I want to ask you, do you think that that gap ever really closes between taste and talent? Like, do you think it ever closes, or does it have to?
Yeah, I think that it does, actually. I think that I see in a lot of different circumstances people who are incredibly talented and they've only gotten there from closing the gap. And I actually do know quite a few people who do think like they are amazing and their stuff is so good. You know, we often talk about people having imposter syndrome and, you know, a lot of folks in these spaces who you would think like, oh man, this isn't right. This isn't good enough. I think that's a trope we see like on TV a lot of times where people are, you know, they just want to hide their talent to themselves. And I do know quite a few people who really do own it. And so I think that it is possible to, and I also think that even if there is still space, because there's a lot of places where I feel like there's such a huge gap. Like I know if something looks like how I want it to look, but can I quite get it there? Not really. Like that's why I'm going to delegate certain things to other people. And so in certain spaces, I'm okay and I recognize where my talent ends, and really the talent is just like knowing and being able to recognize the taste, right? And so also don't think like that this keeps you from being a part of the game or the process in some kind of way, even if you're not maybe thinking of yourself as like some artist or something. But in all that to say that I do think that in some places there's a gap, and that in some places you can be completely into your work and think that it's there.
Yeah, and that's beautiful. I think rest in peace to Quincy Jones, but I was just listening to an interview from him the other day where he was talking about like he only really did stuff that he felt really good about, and he knew it wasn't perfect, but he spent the time on it and only worked with people he really cared about, and you know, created this thing. But now it's like you can kind of feel that in the music and in everything that he did. So I don't know if it can ever like close, because I feel like people who chase those things, like they know they're great, but they also might have another level of things that they're always aspiring to be. There's always the next thing, but you can always work towards it.
Yeah, and I think sometimes thinking especially about musicians and really great musicians, a lot of time it almost seems like the gap is not necessarily like your taste or like your ability to do a thing, but the gaps can become like as you're evolving, like letting your work evolve with it. And so it's kind of feels like sometimes it's a realignment. So the taste is where you're at, but I don't necessarily feel like it's always like, oh man, I'll you know, the talent part is not always there. And then to add on to like who this is for too, because I'm over here thinking also about folks who, because this is me too sometimes, not all the time, but sometimes it's like people who never post, or you never want to post anything on social media, or you don't want to talk about a project until it's like, you know, maybe all the way over, or you don't want to talk about things because you don't think the numbers are that awesome or whatever, right? And like, so it's like also you're never celebrating yourself. You never feel like anything is good enough to showcase to people.
Okay, so if you are one of these people who, you know, are feeling like, I was about to say bless you, but that wasn't a sneeze. If you're one of those people who, you know, is releasing or stuck and like feeling like, you know, you might want to release something and now you feeling like something is good enough, what are some tips to help you embrace the gap and actually release?
One of the first things you can do to close the gap and get more of your work, get more of yourself out there, is just to commit to creating a little bit more regularly and sharing regularly. You can commit to a certain time once a week where you sit down and look through all my last photos or think about things that I've been doing this week and, you know, commit to posting something. or even if it's like stories, you can commit to like throwing some stuff in stories or be like, hey, you know, in a meeting or whatever. Also, all this is not, you know, everything ain't supposed to be like posted and, you know, the people who like be quiet and work, all that. I'm not even saying like you have to like showcase all the things you do, but you know, if what's holding you back is like feeling like it's not good enough. And so that's kind of what I'm speaking to.
And I think that that's so important because it's like you don't have to share everything, but I recognize, dang, I wasn't even gonna tell this story for this, but I realized, so I started a fitness Instagram in like 2012, like a long time ago, and I used to post all the time, but I made a separate one because I didn't want to inundate people on my regular Instagram with like fitness shit back in the day. I used to meal prep, post everything, and then I realized like, oh, I like took a couple breaks, but I haven't really been posting like a lot. And I was like, oh, you know, it's because I didn't think things were good enough and they're ready. But what I realized is actually I don't post as much on my fitness account when I'm bigger. And I was like, damn, okay. And as someone who preaches body positivity and tells my clients it doesn't matter as long as you're showing up and doing the work, don't get it twisted. I'm always doing the work. But I felt like I didn't look the way that they're like people expect fitness people to look. And so I was allowing that to keep me from sharing the real progress. When people love when I post workout stuff, like I always get so many comments and things, and I still be training people all the time, like all these things. But I realized like the reason why is because I didn't look exactly the way I thought I should. But that's not why I started doing this shit. And so I had to like recheck myself, and I'll make a whole TikTok about this or whatever like later. But I think that's one of those things. If like be honest with yourself. If you're doing the work, but like you're not sharing it, you know, is there a deeper thing going on there? Like in mine was my body image issue. All of that to say. Oh, go ahead.
Well, I was just going to put on to that. That's a really good catch on that. And also I completely understand because 2022, 2021, it's like a couple of those years on Instagram, it's like 2 pictures from the whole year. And it's just like, you know, you just don't. At the time, it felt like, ugh, I just like not in the mood. I don't want to, you know. But then later, you're like, nah, I didn't feel good. Because now when I'm feeling good and I feel like I look good, then every other day you like click,
getting
click,
it out.
click. Yeah, so it's like, man, what's really going on? Like, so that was a good thing to notice.
And I think that's the next and probably one of the most biggest tips from shifting to actually from the gap, like embracing that gap between your talent and how you think things should look, like your taste, and actually just releasing things is shifting your focus from perfection to progress. I think that is really important to share even when things aren't perfect. And it's not saying you have to share your whole life story, because I honestly believe you shouldn't share everything with everybody. There are some things that should just be for you and the people who love you for real. But like me as a fitness coach, I think that that's important to share that, yeah, even I struggle with my weight sometimes, and that, you know, I'm working on my body image issues and things, because that's something that I talk with my clients about every single day. And so when you're working on building a business, it's important to share that instead of just sharing all the wins. Like share the losses, share the stuff you actually going through, the deals that fell through, or the things you think you can actually learn from. Like everything doesn't have to be perfect.
Yes, that is a huge thing. That really does sum up this episode today. So we want you this week to think about what's some things that you've been holding back on. You look at that with the same eyes and the same qualifications we just went over, right? To see if, okay, is it going to help me improve? Is it going to bring more traffic my way, et cetera, et cetera? Look at it. And then we encourage you to release it, or you can even just tell us like what that thing is. And then share any other ways that you may have that you've been able to close the gap between your taste and your talent.
At Carlie's Couch on all platforms. See y'all next week.
Peace.